Imagine this. It's the late 90s in Czechia. You're in your teens or maybe 20s, hungry to explore, to gather insight into the world, to find yourself. The news are full of literal wonders, from crop circles appearing out of nowhere in the middle of fields all over the world, all the way to advances in actual cloning. New technologies, discoveries, and mysteries are popping up from everywhere almost every week. When your friend asks you to go to a lecture about UFOs that's taking place at your local hall, you agree. Why wouldn't you? It's free, and your friend seems to be thrilled. It might be fun. So you go. A man dressed in white stands before you, and instead of mysterious signals and modern technologies, or abductions, probes and hybrid programs, he talks about a world where love and forgiveness are the utmost virtues to live by, where the forces of good, led from a bright space fleet watching us from above, would guide you towards a better future, where all you need is willingness to listen, to open your heart, and maybe a pencil and a piece of paper, all in harmony with nature, with others, and the universe. But this world is not without its dangers. The evil creeping up on us from the media influenced by the dark and vile layers of evil beyond this world, politicians being tagged with microchips and controlled by the forces of hell, spreading its influence, prompting us to indulge in nightlife. He talks about how dangerous it is to consume media about wars and anything dramatic really. He talks of literal spooks, RFID tags, and reptilians all around us. But he assures you, there is guidance. The good heavenly angelic beings from Pleiades, sent to Earth to help us overcome the darkness, are already here, watching us from their ships in high Earth orbit. All this impending evil can be fought and defeated simply by joining and being a good person. You just witnessed one of the many events hosted by cosmic people of light powers, also known as heavenly angels, or most commonly, the universe people. Perhaps the most famous and likely the weirdest cult from Czechia that's still around to this day. It was the year 1995. A dairy farm worker, a woman named Miloslava Drsková, was searching for meaning in life, something deeper than her mundane everyday existence. She'd been a spiritual person, reading up a lot on possibilities out there, learning about communicating with other planes of existence from teachings of German author Michal Hesseman. And after trying this for some time, she had an epiphany, and she herself started communing with Pleiadians, or aliens from the Pleiades constellation. In 1997, she taught a man named Ivo Benda to do the same. Soon after, meetups and gatherings were happening all over the country, and everyone came to know, at least to some degree, about cosmic people of light powers, or simply universe people. With messages of love and light, and their, and I cannot overstate this, massive leaflet campaigns, they gathered some hundreds to maybe a few thousand of true followers, focusing on the impending apocalypse, the potential destruction of Earth by the forces of evil, and the need to evacuate all the good people out of the harm's way. Of course, this didn't come to pass. And with this unfulfilled, ever-impending almost prophecy, the influence of cosmic people dissipated. But they are still around, and as far as cults go, they seem to be unique. Universe people are a clean-cut cult, it seems, if that's even possible. As it always is, it all goes back to the philosophies of the founder. Ivo Benda, an IT engineer, a fan of classical and 70s music and books, especially sci-fi writers of the 60s and 70s, always dreamt of advanced alien civilizations, about how technology could be used to help people, and how perhaps some advanced civilization could help humanity become better. The first contact he made on the 7th of September 1997 had to be a dream come true for him. And so he, along with Miloslava Drsková, began to transcribe these conversations so others could read and spread the word too. And there is a lot to spread. about who these aliens are, how the alien society is structured, information about the looming threats to Earth, and what we, as mere humans, could do to push against the evil. As of today, there are 10 main volumes documenting thousands upon thousands of these communications. Over 7,000 densely written full-size pages, and many more accompanying books, all freely available on their multitude of websites. Just to elaborate a little, the most famous of the Pleiadians is, of course, Ashtar Sharan, who before becoming a meme of internet culture, was the leader of the galactic fleet sent to our space quadrant to prepare us for the potentially impending catastrophe of apocalyptic scale and the subsequent evacuation of all good people from our planet. He shares this leadership position with Ptah, and it's mostly these two leaders who started communing with Benda and later other members of the universe people. According to the Pleiadians, we are only one of many millions of civilizations in the universe, and these aliens, or heavenly beings, are benevolent enough to communicate and guide anyone with an open heart and faith, so our civilization could reach the same level of enlightenment as they have. People here are, after all, slaving away until exhaustion under bad influences that drag them down from early youth, all needlessly. It turns out that to reach this enlightenment, it doesn't take much. One has to be selfless, to work for others, to renounce materialism, to only have what's needed, no multiple properties or cars per person. Also, no eating meat, no smoking, no drinking, no form of nightlife or consuming any media focused on negativity, including both horrors and thrillers, and no consumption of news of real-world events like wars. Also, little to no self-indulgences as opening our spirit hearts is all we have to do to get the heavenly messages from these angels/aliens. Just that, and we can have the world as they do. A sort of meritocratic utopia where nobody works more than needed, but at the same time, issues are treated by forced labor. World where everybody gets perfect care when needed, but those who work harder for others get the best care. I think I'm a little too down to earth to put all the ideas into a few sentences, but it's all there in the volumes of documents freely available on their websites, which you might have heard of if you live in the meme culture. Their websites are a true Web 1.0, documenting and containing everything about the universe people in the signature style of Ivo Benda's own design. The site, or rather sites, are all the same, clones of each other as far as the design and content goes. The universe people have 29 separate websites in Czech and Slovak languages only, 30 more in English and another 26 in various other languages such as German, Hungarian, Swedish, all the way to Chinese. That's 87 separate websites, all with the same content, all with the same design. And if your language isn't listed, they got you covered. The Google Translate button is right there. And although they do get updated every once in a while, they don't really change that much ever either. The recently passed Erich von Däniken, a Swiss author nowadays most known for The Chariot of the Gods and his appearances in Ancient Aliens TV show, is a rather famous figure in the UFO and extraterrestrial spaces. That might be an understatement. Erich von Däniken pretty much proposed the whole ancient aliens hypothesis, based on linking biblical and other religious and mythological descriptions to descriptions of technology without the language to explain it. He is the father, or so to speak, of the whole movement. His books were published all over the world, but more interestingly, the first of his books, Chariot of the Gods, was available fully translated in Czechoslovakia all the way back in 1969. After the fall of the Iron Curtain, by the mid-90s, over 20 more of his books were translated and published in Czech language amidst the influx of foreign media. Long before the Ancient Aliens show, long before the reality television sensationalism took over, people like Erich von Däniken became somewhat a phenomenon, at least with the more curious and open-minded of the population. In between these authors was another well-known ufologist, a German named Michal Hesseman, who, in his book named UFO Contacts, which was translated to Czech in 1992, just 2 years after its original hit the shelves, wrote about his contacts with UFOs. Although he later labeled Hesseman as an agent of darkness, it was his book Ivo Benda credits the most in his interviews, stating it's approximately 75% true. There has always been an interest in the spiritual and otherworldly in Central Europe, from old superstitions through urban legends and Whedon future, all the way to actual sci-fi-like psychedelic state-led experiments of the 50s and 60s. So the grounds for this kind of open thinking has always been there. After the borders opened, there was an influx of culture or whatever passed for it. Endless TV infomercials, self-help books on how to influence others by mastering psychological tricks, Hollywood scandals, wondrous diet programs, all of which tried to get a piece of the small but still available new market of potential buyers. This, of course, included many spiritual movements, including New Age. And seemingly every form of open thinking was welcome in the now less restrictive space. It was a perfect environment for universe people to get a foothold, especially since their teachings are quite Czech-centric. They deemed the old regime evil, but so they did the influx of capitalism. And all of their teachings, communing, the materials, everything was there, and in Czech no less. Of course, universe people aren't the only UFO New Age religious movement out there. There have been dozens more around the world. Perhaps most notably in the 70s, a man named Marshall Applewhite founded the most controversial of this genre of movement, an infamous group named Heaven's Gate. The Heaven's Gate cult, an isolationist and heavily controlled group based on its own blend of biblical and vaguely scientific lore, specifically targeted spiritually inclined people using media and even the early internet to propagate and recruit members. Applewhite preached total abstinence from almost every stimuli, changed the members' names so that only the first letters of the former names remained in their new alienesque ones. He even made his followers change their appearance to be as androgynous as possible, for all to be the same. The moment the whole world heard about them was in 1997. 39 bodies of Heaven's Gate devout members were found lying in beds, their heads covered with purple blankets. The deed was their exit strategy, an evacuation to get to a spaceship which, according to their leader, was supposed to be the Hale-Bopp comet that orbits the solar system once in a 2,500 years and just so happened to make its way near Earth in 1997. I actually vaguely remember seeing this on the primetime news as a kid, right in the middle of Europe. That's how far it reached. This, of course, brought a lot of attention to the universe people. The similarities were striking. Both were heavily molded by UFO ideologies, science fiction, New Age, and biblical influences. Both had charismatic leaders who communicated with other spheres of being. And most importantly, both had evacuation of the Earth deeply ingrained in their teachings. But whereas the Heaven's Gate found their evacuation spacecraft in the Hale-Bopp comet and ended their lives in pursuit of what they called the next level, universe people seem to be heavily opposed to any such action. After a member took his own life in 2003 by a form of a public protest against the world full of evil, Benda himself commented that while he agrees with 90% of what was said in the goodbye letter, or rather manifesto, he doesn't agree at all with what the young man did. Taking one's life is a notable offense against the cosmic laws of love, said Benda in a statement that came as a reaction. That being said, the manifesto, in its entirety, is hosted on the official Universe People website to this day, along with a text explaining how the mainstream media took only parts of it out of context. This was, and still is, the only documented case of any harm linked to them, at least from what I could find. But that doesn't mean the universe people live in a perfect bubble of idealized world. Because to be on the side of good, there has to be evil out there. There are at least 2 million advanced, good civilizations in our galaxy. But of course, that's not all there is. How can good exist without having evil to fight? Well, in this case, the evil comes in form of different aliens, coming from the dark universes. These forces of evil are influencing people here on Earth to stray away from the light. And of course, most of us are influenced by them. Divided into 4 quadrants, our planet is under the evil influence of these invisible reptilians, whose whispers make us stray from the path of good. As it turns out, most of the bad that happens in the world, whatever anyone does that doesn't align with the bright ideals, is, at least in part, informed by these reptilians, or other aliens from the dark side of this universe. And they have only one goal: to make us fall into the darkness, towards the apocalyptical catastrophe universe people are trying so hard to prevent. This is only the tip of the universe people lore iceberg. There is almost 1,400,000 words in the 10 main volumes of their teachings. That's around 3 times the length of the Lord of the Ring books, mostly in form of heavenly beings explaining things. There's really way too much to unpack. The universe people had their biggest rise on the brink of the new millennium. In the late 90s and early 2000s, Ivo Benda was traveling around the country, doing talks whenever he was invited to speak, publicly presenting their ideas. Their leaflets reached homes of hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions. And this isn't an overstatement. These brightly colored pamphlets with mismatched illustrations full of text that highlights seemingly everything are recognizable at the first sight for many people to this day. And to this day, there is a slight awareness in Czechia about the universe people. But ask someone who they are, and most people wouldn't be able to tell you anything beyond having a vague recollection of people with funny ideas about aliens. The first-hand accounts are still there. People received pamphlets or actually have been to the talks, curious what it's about. But it's been a quarter of century, and for the past 20 or so years, there were no public engagements. The events were limited to members only. The only thing left, their own available resources and a few scarce interviews spread over the internet. But the universe people are not completely gone, and neither is Ivo Ashtar Benda. He took the second name with approval of Ashtar Sheran, of course. To me, the weirdest or most curious thing isn't their beliefs, but what they are as a group. They do seem relatively clear-cut, as much as such a group can be, but can there ever be such a thing as a clear-cut cult? Despite the piles of conspiracy theories embedded in their teachings, the universe people, as far as it's known, don't seem to be what would generally be considered a cult. They aren't exactly strictly organized. There's no micromanagement of personal lives. They don't segregate themselves. There's no call to separate people from their families or the world. The darkest things I could find aside of their colorful theories about the world order was a mention of a member putting monthly donations towards the costs of the websites, insisting it's all voluntary. The universe people don't have any known temples, churches, or altars dedicated to the legions of spaceship-flying aliens. No monuments of Ashtar Sheran or Ptah. No compounds where the members would live and work. There's been no violence and no known abuse. From the invisible reptilians through the hellish RFID microchips to control and enslave us, the angelic aliens from Pleiades, planet dimensions, the vibrations to shift us towards a higher place of being, all the way to the questionable reasoning behind the current events and advice on choices regarding lifestyle, it's Benda's teachings that define the movement not control. And Ivo Benda, he is resurfacing here and there, still actively taking care of the websites, but other than a few interviews, he just keeps to himself. And that's actually the most curious thing. For such a charismatic leader figure, he seems to be doing exactly what he preaches. Living in a rented apartment, not even owning a car, having and using just what he needs, just as universe people teach.